So hey, welcome back everybody to wellnesstalks.org. I'm your host, Todd Schmenk, and I'm here once again with one of my longtime best friend, best buddy. There's not a good word to describe
brother,
Jim, except an appendage that happened to get separated, in before birth. So welcome back, Jim.
Yeah, thanks. Love being here. Love these conversations. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. So let's dig in. We're gonna play around with a unique idea today.
Awesome. Let's go.
A really cool topic this week, which has come up a number of times, is people coming to the realization that in order to become less anxious, to become less worried, it's almost like small doses of exposure. And what COVID's doing is just constantly dosing people with this. So, and then like, I feel like in some ways I'm getting a little bit better with this, in other ways, I'm not. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like this. How do you treat osteoporosis? And they're like, well, with medication and then weight-bearing exercise. I'm like, yeah. So play with the weight-bearing exercise for a second. And what's that all about? And they're like, well, you go in, you work out, or you're doing steps. I'm like, yeah, but the mechanism, what's underneath that? And they're just like, well, I guess you're applying pressure. I'm like, exactly. You're purposely applying pressure. And what that does is it causes what's there to actually break down, and then it has to transform and it becomes stronger. This is different than being resilient. Resilient means something hits you, bounces off of you, and you keep going. I'm like, if anything, there's not really a good word for this. I haven't found anything. The only thing I've found that's out there is anti-fragile. There was a book in 2012, I think, called Anti-Fragile, and he kind of talks about this weird synthesis that happens. You're not resisting it, pushing it back. It hits you, and then you have to reorganize. And then once you're done reorganizing, boom. Or what's the old phrase? That it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Right.
So it's really, that's actually been a pretty big theme this past week with a lot of folks, not just patients, but friends and family. It's like, you realize that when we're done with COVID, a lot of people, we're going to be more than just resilient. We're going to be anti-fragile. You're going to have this adaptability that's going to be strengthened. Your ability to process, to take stuff in, to reorganize, and then re-engage. We'll end up being better people. And we always give lip service to the Great War generation, the Depression generation, and World War II generation. We look back at those people in awe, and we have the highest respect for them. But we have no clue. Like it's very cliche and lip service to look back at that. We need to act like them, without actually understanding what it was that they experienced. And now we're getting a taste. And this was 1929 to 1945. I mean, it was just this long, drawn out period. And yeah, these people were tough as nails because they had to be.
Well, something that's very interesting regarding that is that there are some studies that are done on the physiology of the body.
Oh, absolutely.
That point to the need for stress, the balance that stress gives the body. And of course, I'm not talking about the kinds of stress that people typically...
Not mental, emotional. You're talking about physical. Yeah.
Right. And I think that in my understanding of it, the idea of anti-fragile is that it's also mental and emotional. In other words, I think it breaks down when mentally or emotionally you have a sense of something being wrong instead of there being a pressure that needs your attention. And the idea of anti-fragile is that, oh, okay, this is the new thing I need to look at, and it's...
Well, and ACT points to this when we're talking about, you have a reality slap. That's that thing which just slams into your reality. And then when you look up when all the dust is gone and there's this reality gap, oh my God, where I am and where I actually wanted to be, and boom, there's this thing in the way.
Right.
And the immediate thing our mind does is try to close that gap. But sometimes, like right now with COVID, we can't close that gap. I mean, we're working on it, and perhaps we'll come up with, but it's never going to be completely closed. And the culture as a whole is shifted. we're not going to go back to how we did business exactly. There's going to be the telemedicine, the telehealth, the conferencing, the working from home. I think people got a taste of it now. And it's not that bad. At first, we were all like, "Oh, this is horrible. I don't want to stand at screens and blah 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 blah." But now people are like, that's anti-fragile. There's got to be a better word, because and I don't want to necessarily use anti-fragile, because you're using two negatives to kind of take.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It does. For most people, it doesn't come across the way we're trying to describe it as something that would.
It's almost like resolve, resolution, adaptation. I mean, if you were to make it a book title, I think it would just be like resolve. Like this is how we emerge. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. Because there's a lot of components to it. There's a certain level of resistance, but then, and it's not like you're breaking. It's almost like you're an amoeba or some kind of a bubble. And instead of like pushing back against whatever, pushing against the membrane, you just kind of like, and you open it up, and now you're a little bit bigger, but you've got it inside, and it just becomes who you are.
Right.
And we've done this from day one. It's like something hits us and we're like, and then we almost have to like reorganize and realign.
Well, there's another way to express it, which is if you're not creating your life, it will get created. It's a lot of people who are at that point in their life where they're having, something happen to them. They're sick or, other emotional or whatever issues they're there because they reached that point from staying comfortable for too long that the world said, that's not how things work. Time to change. And if you think about it, it's always been amazing to me when I go to city to city to city and everybody gets up at the same time and tries to drive to work at the same time, creating a bottleneck on the highways when there's so many hours in a day and so many easy ways to deal with that. And the world just said, let's switch things up a little bit.
Well, that, or it's just like these systems eventually, as all the parameters change and the pressure's put on, because we're human and behaviors are easy. Behaviors are something for us to just do, and then we don't have to expend a lot of energy because we don't like expending energy if we don't have to. And then all of a sudden you have a drastic change to a variable. COVID starts, it's something we have to respond to. And that's just the natural course of nature. It's just things always, hurricanes hit, fires happen, earthquakes.
But what part of the person doesn't want to change? And if you read the book Thinking Fast and Slow, this is fascinating because they've demonstrated how the mind operates to find solutions to circumstances that are before you.
Yeah.
And the use of the brain to use its pre-programmed filters to give you an answer that you leverage. And right away, the thing that I think of is that if I have an abstract disposition where I'm, let's call it diffusing, if I'm being mindful, another way to say it, right?
Yes.
Then I'm just being present, and I'm not trying to assign meaning to it as it happens. And then my big question here is and then do you need to find the energy? Why are we finding the energy to deal with it? Is it because we're pre-built for that meaning finding, and why mindfulness is so beautiful? Because it gets you to just be in the moment.
It allows you to be curious, to be openness.
Right, to be present.
And some people are going to function better at that. The 5-factor model shows some people are more open, some people are less open. But all you need is a couple pioneers to find the technology and do what they're doing, which is what happened. And then everybody else is like, what? This is against wait a minute, I mean, once you get over that initial hump of having to learn the new technology, and that happens every single time a new phone comes out, a new update to Windows, a new update to whatever, what do people do? What is this? And then what do we do? Oh, well, wow, this thing does this, it does this, it does this, and so it's kind of like the two old guys from the the Muppet Show, that was terrible. It was awful. It was bad. It was bad. It was not too bad. It was average. Well, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's like, yay, but no man, and I think that was part of the thing that was there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And we do that. We go from one way to the other or back. So it's just, human beings are pretty damn hysterical sometimes. So
yeah, but that's really interesting to me. This really fits in with the conversation. I love the conversation because before, I always ponder what we'll talk about before these calls. And this morning's theme was the word abstract. I like the word mindfulness better because this goes back to what we've talked about again and again.
right.
How do I start talking about non-dual stuff in a dualistic language? Not easy. But if I just give the mechanics of mindfulness, in other words, the idea is to quiet the mind and just be present.
Right.
And we look at the power of that. In fact, as you just put it, described it in a framework of psychological flexibility, the importance of openness and ACT, as far as them really speaking to, this is, really an important aspect of, I'll just call it a development of personal development. But I really, I don't know, the way I pondered it this morning was, it seems to me that there's a challenge in recognizing it's really hard because we're naturally, as Thinking Fast and Slow would say, fast thinkers, which is really non-thinking. And
it's solve, problem solve. And we do that a lot, and it works a lot. It's like, I dropped the coffee, I can clean it up. Or I blew a tire, my tires are low. I get in the car, my light goes on the other day, boop, your tires are low. It's the first day it drops below 30 some degrees. I'm like, oh, okay, let's stop off, fill it up. Fix. So that's the fast. It's a quick solutions. And that's gotten us really far. But now I guess the slow thing is sometimes you have to slow yourself down, because my mind could have jumped into, oh my God, I must have a flat. And I could have been panicking the entire time. And that was like the first thought. I'm like, oh, damn it, do I have a flat? Wait a minute. And so I stepped back in that moment. And what's nice now is the car has a little thing where I can see how much air is in each tire. And I look at the scan and I'm like, I pull it up. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's cool technology. I'm like, I hate using this thing, but I'm like, now I'm using it. So there's right there's the irony.
Right.
And I see, I'm like, all 4 tires are down 4 pounds, not just one down a lot. But I could have gone with my initial response was the sky's falling. I mean, and there's no way I'm going to get past.
Well, you might have for a moment, right? When you first saw it might have been, oh shit.
No, it was like, damn it.
Yeah. It could be flat.
There's no way people want to try to avoid that kind of a moment. You can't. You're going to get nailed by something sooner or later. And that's part of the strategy some folks are having, is that I'm just going to stay home and cut myself off and not go anywhere. And then there's the pain of absence, the connection, the actually doing something creative, the being out, the being involved. It's like, so you're protecting yourself from the possibility, however low, of it actually being a flat tire. Because, if I would have stayed home, then I never would have had that experience. I wouldn't have had that 3 seconds of, right? So it's just really getting people to see the pain of presence, the thing that's actually happening. And in that pain of presence, you're going to experience it. Can we step back and start to just pay attention to what's going on? Because then all I did was look at the monitor and I was able to see, oh, it's actually all 4. I can get that later. I know what this is. And I went to work. And then I filled the tires up on the way home because I didn't want to be late. So it's like all these little things fall in place. Or the other one that I've been using a lot is, I'm sure you've done this. You go, hauling into, do you need something? It's later. You get in the car, you go up to get milk or eggs or something, and you get to the convenience store and you go to the door and boom, you fall off the door. Like blam, just pushed backwards. And I've actually seen a person that got super pissed one time. He's like, damn it, I came up here, and he's walking around the parking lot, and I'm like, sir? And he's like, yeah, what? And I'm like, pull? And he's like, ah, oh, damn it, I'm such an idiot. Can't believe I didn't. So part of it's like, if he just would have taken the time to just back up. I mean, what do you normally do? A lot of times people, if I've done that, you've done it, we hit the door and you stop for a second. You're like, wait, what just happened? And you step back and you realize, pull. Oh, and then you keep going, right? Same kind of a concept is that we hit that moment, and if we could just be mindful, step back and just breathe for a second.
Well, but what does trigger it, and where's your threshold? So I'd have a question.
Well,
if everybody does it, but people have different thresholds, because
like the gentleman in the parking lot, obviously there must have been a series of things that have happened where, or actually I've had, this was a prevalent thought. It doesn't matter what I do, bad things always happen. So if that guy coming up to the door has that unconscious thing that he's never taken time to pull out and take a look at, then when he hits the door, that routine, that subroutine just goes off. See, this is just me. I suck. The whole world is out to get me.
But that's my point, because on one hand, so what you said is, look, this is how we work. You can't do anything about it. But we are exploring the fact that there are thresholds and things that influence when you'll get triggered and when you don't, which would lead me to believe that there's some avenues to be explored there relative to what you said earlier, which is, how do you get to that place where you can expose, you said we need some pioneers to really show us what's possible here.
And then there are, that's the mindfulness movement has come out of that, saying, hey, but unfortunately it gets sold and it gets touted as it's like snake oil a lot of times too. It's like, oh, this will make your life so much better. And what they're doing is they're actually selling you a way to escape, avoid, control something. But if you actually just utilize mindfulness as a way just to recognize that this is an innate aspect of what it means to be human, and then you have the ability to nudge, like just kind of, okay, I can let that sit and move in that direction. It's a conscious practice that has to be done, just like driving. You had to learn how to, you're really paying attention, have to do all the time, and eventually it just becomes more second nature.
I really don't know that there's anything that we really learn emotionally and intellectually that we don't engage through how we identify with things through our body. Amy Cuddy's book that I talked to you about last time, where all she's teaching people to do is stand with your legs apart and your hands on your hips and put yourself up and hold that for 2 minutes. That's it. Yeah. And William James, of course, talked about this years ago. He promoted the theory that this is, which came first? Is it a thought, or does my body project it? And I don't know that that seems like a chicken and egg thing. No. But an integral part of making those kinds of changes is practicing something.
And remembering to do it when it happens.
I think you drive it down into that. That's this thing, right?
That's therapy. Because therapy, when we're dealing with somebody and I watch them and they're getting upset and they're falling into it, the fusion is, hey, you want to try something? Do you want a way out? And they're like, yeah, of course, that's why I'm here, and you're just kind of like, okay, so can we just lean back, stand up, and put your arms out? Let's just watch what happens. I know. Just let's stay. Trust me. Let's just stay here for a moment and see what happens. I'm just asking you to try an experiment. And you'll watch as the emotional, it just dims a little bit. And this has been talked about multiple times. Peterson in his book, stand tall with your shoulders back. There's something to be said for the posture.
Yeah.
All the way down, I think he said all the way down to lobsters. You're doing this, you're actually causing the serotonin, and you're opening yourself up and you're being present. Yep. Versus this, I'm actually closing everything off. And this is why you see that. Because I ask people, like, what is, when you're being at your best with an issue like this, how would you look? What would you do sitting in front of me? And they're like, well, at my best, I would be like this. And I was like, okay, so then can you show me with your body what it would look like if, when you're at your worst? I'm like, oh, that's easy. And And they're all just like, they ball themselves up. So I'm like, well, if you automatically go to this ball position, which by the way is a great way to protect yourself if you're being attacked by a bear 100,000 years ago, you know, trying to get everything in. I'm like, but nothing's actually physically attacking you, but this is just how we're wired to respond, and we actually need to do almost the opposite. Oh God, this really sucks. This really hurts. But I'm just going to stay out like this. I mean, even just doing that right now, it feels good. I mean, so if, you know, if somebody's watching this, it'd be like, hey,
when I'm standing at my desk, which, you know, I've got the mobile thing so I can stand there, and I'm in a meeting and I need energy, I just put my hands on my hips and I just stand there for a few minutes while I'm talking. It just picks things up. It's automatic.
And we do this unconsciously.
A little bit.
How many times have you been at your desk or seen people at their desk, and what do when they're starting to feel sluggish and slow? They do this.
Right.
Oh, these big open, I need more energy.
Oh yeah, I love to put my hands and clasp them behind my back, pull, and then pull them up. And this is, it feels so good. It's
just opening this whole area up. Absolutely.
Amazing. It's amazing. Well, we've got less than 3 minutes, and so I think what I'll do is stop us here so that I can say goodbye gracefully. And
sure, well, let me do this, and let's do like thanks for the talk today, Jim. It was always a pleasure.
Always, absolutely.